This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. If you like what you're listening to, please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast and whichever one, leave us a review with all the stars.
Yeah. Welcome back, Hemant.
Thank you.
You've been back in the country for 12 hours?
Not even. I've been gone for like 3 weeks. Just got back this morning. It's Friday. I'm glad to be home.
It was
a good trip.
His first move was like, I gotta get on that podcast tip.
I know. That is how the schedule works. No, it's just nice to kind of like get out of the house and.
So you didn't love being in a tiny cruise ship cabin with 2 very small children?
Yeah, so we took a small family vacation. But I will tell you the really neat part of this trip, because it was the reason I was there. I was in Greece, and it was part of a research thing. It was a week long. And then after that, we just appended a family trip as best we could. But it was a research trip that was basically for a week in this monastery, which was like abandoned. It doesn't function as a monastery. It's owned by like a university now. But they kind of put together a whole bunch of researchers who have done work on demographics and atheism in some capacity. So a bunch of researchers whose papers I've read and written about at times. So that was neat.
Were you fangirling?
Totally. And they put together some PhDs who really study this stuff. Computer programmers who don't necessarily know about the religion stuff, but they're really good at putting together these computer simulations of stuff. And then policy people who really focus on religion and all politics. And that's why I was there. And
that was my
role.
That's your expertise.
My role.
I was wondering what it was.
I don't know why I was there. But they kind of put us all in these groups, and we were talking about a bunch of stuff that trying to come up with computer simulations to talk about demographics. It's way more cooler than I'm making it out to be, but it'll hopefully result in a bunch of research papers coming out over the next year or two.
So fun thing to be a part
it was
of.
a really neat chance to get to talk to these really smart people for a week. But glad to be home. So there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk about because I haven't been able to talk about any of this with anyone for several weeks.
So Ann and I did a news recap about 2 weeks ago, and then we put up an interview you did last week. So we're like, you and I are catching up.
It's been like 3 weeks of stuff
lot.
almost, but most of the stuff I want to talk about kind of happened in the past week.
Okay.
But let's start with a story that was a big deal, which is the Ireland story. So they had this referendum and I'm just looking for my stuff on it. But yeah, they have this huge referendum to overturn
the Eighth Amendment.
The Eighth Amendment.
Which not specifically, but effectively banned abortion. Like, it's definitely one of those things that, like, the wording isn't explicit, but it is implicit. And it's been... and so contextually, it's really interesting because, obviously, Ireland is a fairly Catholic country. And so they do have many laws and we've talked about them on this. So the abortion thing, gay marriage was not legal for a very long time, which is not specific to Ireland. But also we've talked about the blue laws before of you can't sell alcohol on specific days in Ireland. So it was just 3 years ago that the country legalized same-sex marriage in a popular vote. And now they did the overturn the 8th, and there was a huge social media campaign. So it was home to vote was the thing, and it was people.
So a bunch of people with citizenship in Ireland came back, just to vote for that issue,
and it was exciting and overwhelming. It was a really exciting day. Like, it was about 2/3 who voted to overturn it, which I think all forecasts said it would probably get overturned, but that was a bigger.
What really surprised
a bigger margin
me,
than we expected.
In 1983, when they instituted the 8th, it was like 2/3. It was like 66 to 33 in favor of banning abortion. And this time, when they had the vote, it was completely reversed. It was like 67 to 33
you
against...
said that was 1983. 83.
Yeah. And so the influence of the Catholic Church between then and now has gone away so much.
Yes. And I think 2 things are super interesting about that. One is that you're right, like there has been a literal flip-flop on popular opinion, but also the fact that this law wasn't passed till like almost my lifetime. I was born in 1985. I feel like most people who have heard of this, and certainly I did before I like looked into it, I assumed it's just been one of those things. It's always been on the books and whatever. It's just one of those things that always has been, and they haven't. They enacted it within our lifetime.
They enacted it long after like Roe v. Wade.
Right.
Like more than
so
a
that's
decade.
just a really interesting sort of peek into sort of the late 20th century Catholic Church, I guess.
Yeah, and it shows you how much their influence has faded because, again, with the marriage equality thing, the church opposes that. And with the abortion thing, too. The church wasn't even actively campaigning against it because I think they knew we're going to hurt the cause. And so a lot of the people who wanted to protect the Eighth Amendment and ban abortion, they were almost secular in a lot of ways, or at least making secular arguments for why why abortion should be banned. And they lost. But again, like, think about what the church has done in the past, 20, 30 years. We're not just talking about the sex abuse scandals.
Right.
They have been wrong on so many simple moral issues. They talked about the Magdalene laundries where they basically abused these women in Ireland.
Oh, is that the one where they like stole women's children and said they were stillborn and like...
That could be. I couldn't remember off the top of my head.
I know there's at least something that these, I think it was nuns unwed mothers would go have babies. They would tell the mothers that they're stillborn and...
Jesus. And again, this is what the Catholic Church is known for now, especially in Ireland. And so they knew that the Irish Catholic concern about abortion just was a non-entity here because no one cares what the church has to say about these things.
Which is so interesting because the Catholic Church is the official Church of Ireland, right? And is that their official religion? Oh, God, I don't want to speak out of turn.
I know. But do some research, damn it. But, I mean, we're talking like 90% of people in Ireland call themselves Catholic.
And maybe this isn't a good comparison, but I think it's interesting that, like, Great Britain has their church. There is the Church of England that is, and they have a really low religiosity
Nations
rate.
with official religions have very low religiosity in practice.
Sweden, Norway.
I mean, all the Scandinavian countries too. Even if they might have an official church. But again, when you have church and state mixing, it's bad for religion, which is something that church-state separation people in the U.S. point out all the time. Like, separation of church and state is good for both sides.
Right.
And so that's one thing. Yay, Ireland, fine. I wanted to point out an article that came out a few days ago, and this is from Focus on the Family. Cool. Jim Daly is the guy who runs it. Focus on the Family, you might think of it as the organization that's anti-gay, but as we've talked about before, they're now a mega church. Officially.
Cool.
But anyway, he basically wrote a condolence letter to the people of Ireland because you're all very depressed right now. Here's what he was trying to do. He wanted to warn them because of this horrible decision they have now made. Here's all the horrible things that are now going to happen because abortion will be legalized, at least to some extent.
Wait. Women will have access to safe and legal abortions. Is that the only thing?
That is not what he wrote.
Wait, what?
I know.
I can't believe it.
There are a few things worth pointing out. Some of them were just like, you're going to have whatever typical, the devaluation of the human.
Yeah, I mean, I hate humans, but that's separate and apart from my pro-choice values.
Right, like you expect the conservatives to say some of the things like a decline in the birth rate. Well, yeah, if you have a legalized abortion, there might be a decline in the birth rate, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, depending on who's getting the abortions or in general. And also, I mean, he's also said things like we're going to have a devaluation of human life. Okay,
sure.
Whatever. That's their opinion. They're wrong about it. But whatever.
Sounds like science to me. I don't know
Let me bring up a couple of the other things he pointed out. Yeah. The rate of stillborn births will increase, which is a complication that can occur after a woman's had an abortion.
Okay.
That is not true.
That's not how any of that works.
There is no evidence that says if you've had an abortion, you're more likely to have a stillborn child.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Because I definitely misunderstood what you said.
He said the rate of stillborn births, so you gave birth to a child, it's not alive,
right,
will increase.
Because...
Or maybe you haven't given birth, but the baby, the fetus, whatever, is dead.
Right.
It's going to go up. because you've had an abortion.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
What he's connecting to is I had an abortion
5
years
years
ago.
Now you're going to have more likely to have a stillborn child.
What I heard was definitely that like a woman had an abortion and then she... Like that same pregnancy was stillborn.
Right.
I was that's super not how abortions do.
No, so he's saying the next birth is more likely to be stillborn.
This is the shit that really upsets me because that, like, you can say spiritual whatever, you can say moral whatever. It's all sort of like touchy-feely, ambiguous language. When you say things like that, those mean things to people. And when people hear that kind of rhetoric, it changes their decision making, and it sucks.
And there are a lot of things health-wise that may contribute to a stillborn birth. And I'm looking at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This is the government website. Some of the things they bring it up to. If you are a teenager, maybe not yet ready to give birth, that could do it. If you're older, 35 or older and giving birth,
all right,
that could do it. Being obese, smoking cigarettes during pregnancy, having had a previous pregnancy loss. These are all contributing factors to stillborn babies.
Do you think he spun off if you had a previous pregnancy loss?
The only thing I could think of...
Because that's not a cause and effect thing, right?
Well, this is the only thing I could think of. If the argument is if you've had an abortion, then maybe your future pregnancy could result in a stillborn child. It's, well, you're older now.
Sure.
Like there are other things that have happened to you since then. And maybe there is a correlation between, your first pregnancy versus your next one.
You are a person who does not easily sustain a pregnancy or something.
Yeah. And I think he's making the wrong, again, this is
it's
statistics 101, but he's making that assumption. But again, there is no connection between abortion to stillborn. There may be other factors in place. So whatever. That one is a lie.
Yep.
Another thing he brought up, Irish women who abort will suffer a higher risk for depression, substance abuse, and suicide.
Yikes. And his face, I've never had an abortion and I'm super depressed. Suck my dick.
Abortion doesn't lead to any of those things. No. By the way, he didn't provide links for any of this stuff.
What? He didn't cite his sources?
No.
I've never heard of a thing.
And one of the bloggers who has written about this even said, like, a 2016 study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found the exact opposite to say... maybe not the exact opposite, but they said, we found no evidence that women who have abortions develop depression, anxiety, low self-esteem for immediately or for 5 years after the abortion.
When do they care about low self-esteem? Like, Jesus.
You know what did cause poorer mental health outcomes? Being denied an abortion.
Yeah.
That actually happened.
Do you have more on this particular story?
Those were the two things he mentioned where I'm just like, that's factually not true. These are just scare tactics, the propaganda they sort of use to tell people abortions are evil. It's like, and by the way, I think this is part of the reason the Ireland anti-abortion side lost the race. They lost that vote. It's because they always seem to rely on lies to spread their message.
Yeah.
Because the facts don't back them up.
Right.
They want to tell you that, like, here's what your fetus, this bloody fetus looks. That's not how abortions work in most cases.
And when you're leaning on lies, it only takes like a tiny sliver of truth to be like, oh, okay, like, because I feel like that's how the in the 1980s, 1990s, the Just Say No campaign was a lot like that. Of like, you can be addicted to drugs after smoking pot once, and people like smoked pot once, and we're like, well, that isn't how that worked. So
that's right.
What else are you lying to me about?
Exactly. And one other thing that Jim Daly said in that same piece is he perpetuated that myth that Planned Parenthood sells dead fetus parts to like raise money. Something like that, which he said Planned Parenthood sells, quote, aborted preborn baby body parts. That's not what they do.
Tiny, tiny hands and tiny, tiny feet. That's
We're talking about organ donation, tissue donation, fetal
stem cell
donation. Yes, and they get reimbursed for like shipping and handling when they sent those to scientific labs for testing, because the other alternative was to throw it away. So they were like, well, if these people want to use it for research, we can, like, give us the shipping costs, reimburse, whatever. This has been exposed. This has been debunked repeatedly, and he's perpetuating that lie, too.
Phrase is out there enough. Selling baby parts has just kind of permeated the culture, and so it doesn't. There's no way to stop it anymore.
No, you can't stop the perpetuation of the lie, but you would think someone who's like, let me make an argument for why Ireland did something wrong, might want to rely on some facts or at least his opinion.
Right, and not
lies.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting is I think one of the first things he said was there's going to be a lower birth rate. Was that, or a decline in birth rate?
Yeah, he also said that in his piece that there's going to be a lower birth rate.
So what I what I think about that's really interesting is I just saw a think piece. I'm going to see if I can find it, but it was just essentially like, yes, millennial women are having fewer kids than Gen Xers, baby boomers. And why is that? And so people talk about, it's birth control and abortions, I guess, is what they complaining on. But what they're not taking into, which that's true, birth control necessarily is going to mean like fewer people have kids. But what they're not taking into account is why they are choosing not to have kids, not just like, they don't care about anything but themselves and they don't want to be tied down. The truth is that childcare is incredibly expensive. Working mothers get shit from most companies. The American government does not care about maternity leave and requiring it. The United States maternity and paternity leave policies are so arcane that I just think it's hysterical that these people are talking out of both sides of their mouth that, just like clutching their pearls that, the birth rate is declining, as if that's, if
that's the goal, to have like a bigger birth rate, larger birth rate,
maybe we should help. And also, like, maybe economically speaking, it could be tricky, but like, why do you give a fuck about the birth rate? Like, why? Really, though?
They're not doing it for economic.
Though?
Yeah.
Why do you care? That's the thing that's always like, people are going to have kids. Okay, that's super fine. Anyway,
we'll
I guess
right.
my point, and I will say this on every podcast until we get canceled by no one, nobody can cancel us, is if people were pro-life, if people wanted happy, healthy, safe children, they would get away from this anti-abortion garbage and advocate for childhood health care, for childhood, helping working moms, helping single moms.
Situations that may spur women to say, I can't take care of this child.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for a child. I don't want a child.
And I think that's definitely a thing worth talking about is, okay, we know X amount of women have abortions per year, and why is it? So if they accidentally got pregnant with somebody they didn't know, or somebody they don't like, or somebody who's an abuser, and maybe they don't want to be tied to that person for the rest of their child's life. Okay, but if there are people who have abortions because they're like, I cannot afford another child, because many abortions are done by people with children already. If you pro-life, writ large, anti-abortion people want to dig into something, dig into that. Like, why does a woman say, I cannot afford to have a baby right now? Maybe that should be your concern instead of picketing outside Planned Parenthoods.
Don't fight against don't push abstinence-only sex education. That makes it worse. That makes it more likely that a woman's going to need an abortion. Stuff like that.
I don't think that's true. I think we've always found that abstinence only. Listen, teenagers have never had sex before until condoms.
And I think we've said this, or at least it's not news, but like over the Obama administration, the abortion rate went down because they were pushing for the policies that take into account those circumstances, and that's going to change now because they're undoing a lot of that.
Yeah, I think that's also, and again, this is something that people, when you don't reason yourself into an opinion, you can't be reasoned out of it, right? So when we saw abortion rates fall under Obama, time and time again, every country, every society, every generation, we see the more access to birth control, the more access to sex education, the fewer unwanted pregnancies, the fewer single mothers there are. And that, we know, we have the answer right here, right? Like, the way to cut down on teen pregnancy is give kids condoms, give kids birth control, give kids sex education so they know how you get pregnant, because kids don't. Kids really don't know how you get pregnant. And I'm not being the people I know in my life have been like, wait, that's how you get pregnant? Like, to me, in their 20s. We know how to reduce abortions. We know how to reduce teen pregnancy. They just don't want to do that. And for the life of me, I don't know why.
Because they don't.
And rant.
They don't actually care.
No, they don't.
They don't want to know.
So what do they care about, I guess, is my question.
We should ask them.
I should ask them.
Let me talk about another story that came up while I was gone. That this is one of those things where I'm just like, I'm about to step on a plane for a 10-hour flight.
Oh, God.
And this comes in as I'm walking onto my seat, and I'm like, damn it. But Donald Trump issued a pardon for Dinesh D'Souza.
Yeah, so this is not a guy who's on my radar.
Sure. So here's what he did that he was guilty of, which is why he needed a pardon, I guess. But in 2014, basically, he was trying to get his college friend elected to the Senate from New York. But again, any individual can only give a certain amount of money as a contribution. So basically, he urged other people to give her money for her campaign, and then he reimbursed them for their contributions, meaning he personally kind of paid for $20,000 of gifts to her campaign.
That's very chill and legal.
It's totally illegal. That's what they find. They find him for that, and they sentence him to 5 years of probation. And of course, it's a stain on his reputation. Not that it was very good to begin with.
That's what's really stained his reputation, I guess.
So it's a campaign financing. This is what Donald Trump pardoned him for. Now, why should he be on your radar? Here's some of the stuff he is a longtime conservative Christian type who said so much crap about atheists. He's the sort of person who has said in debates like, I don't know why all these new atheists talk about atheism. They don't talk about unicorns, which is not the worst thing you could say. But again, he has said about atheists, they hate God.
Sure.
They are wounded theists.
You get us.
Their atheism, if you will, I'm quoting here, is a form of intellectual and spiritual revenge. He said that.
Cool.
My favorite thing about his conservative Christianity is a Christian magazine actually outed him for possibly engaging in an affair while secretly married.
Wait, secretly married?
Well, I'm sorry, he was married.
Oh.
They outed him for having an affair while he was still married before he got a divorce. And my favorite part about that is he did an interview with Christianity Today regarding that gossip. And they asked him, basically, is this rumor true? And I'm going to quote here, when Christianity Today asked D'Souza directly for his response to charges of infidelity, he responded, quote, it's absolutely not the case it's, look, the issue here is that World, that magazine, is attributing to me an admission that I never made, is attributing to me a quotation I never said. That to me is the problem. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Way to
that guy's
defend
got some media training.
But it basically is a right-wing, the Fox News type of right-wing guy, and Donald Trump is basically going to pardon everybody in that whole world.
Well, also, I've heard that that's sort of, as much as it is what it is, it's also sort of winking at his... like the Michael Cohens of the world,
his
and
Russian
say like, hey, girl,
people.
Like if you don't flip on me,
I'll
pardon you, and everything will be cool.
D'Souza, by the way, pleaded guilty in court to doing all this.
Wow.
Just FYI, the campaign finance thing.
Yeah,
so anyway,
he's definitely the most wronged person in American history, present day history. Super quick, I wanted to. That article I mentioned was on Huffington Post. It was by Emily Peck. It's called Everyone is Missing a Key Reason the U.S. Birth Rate is Declining. Subtitle, in the U.S., women are essentially punished for having kids. So it is worth a read. It's very insightful and interesting. Also, my husband's going to get home in a couple minutes and my dog's going to bark. Just a heads up to everyone.
Or we'll delete it.
Or we'll stop.
Anyway. We'll start editing now. D'Souza has also said atheists are responsible for murder, rape, and genocide because, of
Us
course...
personally?
I think he was talking about you.
Oh,
so,
come on, dude. Rape, though? Genocide, I'll take.
All the horrible stuff. Let me... here's a story that was fascinating.
Too, no. Okay.
Let me go back to...
You've been without a podcast for so long.
I have so much stuff I've been dying to talk about with anybody. This is something...
Your wife doesn't want to sit and yell about politics with you?
No.
Why?
I know. No one wants to talk about any of this stuff with me. So you have to suffer, and all of you listening have to suffer. Okay. The Mormon Church, actual Mormon Church, released a statement last week, out of nowhere it seemed, where they were talking about, we're really good with finances.
Yeah.
And this is what they said. Resources used to carry out...
Just out of nowhere, like, by the way,
Let us tell
our
you-
finances are great,
Yeah.
so don't look into them for sure. For sure.
Pretty much, that's what it looked like. But they were talking about how one of the things they talked about is we spend money on buildings and proselytizing and our mission trips. And here's what they said about where that money comes from. Resources used to carry out this work comes principally from the tithing donations of church members.
Right.
A small portion of funds comes from businesses maintained by the church.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Like, whatever, fine.
I didn't know they had businesses, but that makes sense, I'm sure.
They also said, they elaborated a bit about their kind of investments at a different point in their press release. Because, like, what do they mean by businesses,
Just
right?
waiting for the hammer to fall on
Yeah.
this story.
They said, in addition to food, they talked about how we set money aside for emergencies, too. And they said, in addition to food and emergency supplies.
Like God-related emergencies?
Maybe
God hasn't
natural
talked to our president in a
disasters,
minute?
the apocalypse. I don't know. The church also sets aside funds each year for future needs.
Okay.
These funds are added to church reserves, which include stocks and bonds, taxable businesses, agricultural interests, and commercial and residential property. Investments can be accessed in times of hardship or to meet the emerging needs of a growing global faith. Whatever. None of that sounds particularly weird. It's just like, okay, whatever. It's financial fine print. You own, I'm sure when you have a lot of money, you invest it in that sort of stuff. None of that's weird necessarily. And the whole point of the press release was we're handling it responsibly. What they didn't say how much money is in the businesses, what stock specifically they invested in, anything like that. And by the way, I should point out, they have not been transparent about their finances since, and there is a year attached to this, 1959. They have not disclosed how much money they make because they blossomed after the 1950s. The dog knows it.
Yeah. She's mad about it.
But they haven't been open because they haven't had to be. So since 1959, no one knows how much money is going in or going out or anything like that, okay?
Okay.
Except what they tell us. So, for example, the Mormon Church has said, last year we donated $40 million to humanitarian causes.
But not
They said this.
specified.
They didn't say where necessarily, but they said we gave away $40 million in 2017 for a lot of... Okay, fine. Okay. Then, a couple days ago, Mormon Leaks, that website where they print documents, they actually released information about 13 businesses that appear, by all accounts, to be owned by the Mormon Church.
Oh.
And they know this for a number of reasons, based on government filings, based on the websites they were using and who owns those websites. You can look up the domain registration information. And none of these are like, we're not talking about like Office Depot. We're talking about investment companies whose job it is to invest your money. But the thing about it is the forms you got to fill out with the government when you're a business like this, you only have to fill out those forms if you're managing $100 million or more.
Whoa.
And there were 13 businesses that Mormon Leaks found that were managing this money. Collectively, these businesses, these investment firms, are worth a collective $32 billion. $769,914,000. $32+ billion.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. And some of the things, like all the domain names for these LLCs were registered to Intellectual Reserve, Inc., which happens to be the company that oversees all the intellectual property of the church.
Can we talk about shell company names for a second? Guys.
They have IP addresses that were also linked to by the church. I mean, there's little doubt that these are church-owned companies. Ryan McKnight, a guy we've talked to who kind of runs Mormon Leaks, started it up. He tried contacting the business managers of all 13 companies. 3 of them picked up the phone. He said all 3 happened to work in the church's financial records department.
Oh.
And when one of them was asked, is your business owned by the Mormon Church? She said, I can't answer that.
Really?
So, a couple things about this. One is, remember their press release from last week. Most of our money comes from tithing. A small portion of funds comes from businesses owned by the church.
So they're either lying or they collect
$32 billion
dollars.
is a small portion of their funding. That's one thing.
Louise.
Then when you say we gave away $40 million in humanitarian aid.
That suddenly sounds not super impressive.
That's not a lot relative to how much you have apparently in the bank. And it also keeps them, like, remember in 2008 when the Mormon Church was really behind Proposition 8 and, like, trying to ban gay marriage in California.
We have a better idea of how much money was backing that.
No wonder they can get behind political issues like that, because they have money in the bank ready to fight what I don't know how much money they put into that campaign.
But still, like,
they have money to fight this
I feel like
stuff.
I had in my head, like, the Mormon Church is backing it, which is interesting and fine, but, like, it didn't equate into my head that this, like, industrial behemoth was backing them. It's like fucking Coca-Cola was backing them.
Right. Keep in mind, local church leaders, like your local elders, your people like that, they are not paid. These are volunteers for the most part, so they're not paying their staff, quote unquote. You know what I mean?
Oh, that sure does make profits easier. Sure tightens up those profit margins, huh?
They still want your tithe money. And a couple things. Oh, one other thing that was really interesting. Last month, the new president of the Mormon Church, because the old one died. And
this guy's older. I remember talking about this.
Russell M. Nelson, he is the new church president. He was kind of doing a tour. He was speaking in Africa, in Kenya, and he told the audience how they could finally overcome poverty. And he said, we preach tithing to the poor people of the world because the poor people of the world have had cycles of poverty, generation after generation. That same poverty continues from one generation to another until people pay their tithing. So, hey, poor people, give us your money. Jesus. Because that's how you're going to get richer.
How fucking dare they?
And that, again, they have $32 billion just in those 13 businesses. How many more businesses do they own? We don't even know. How much more money are they making in tithing? We don't know.
Here's my question. Would it be too great a reach to call those kinds of things akin to pyramid schemes? Because
technically speaking, I don't know if that's an accurate description.
I mean, maybe not technically, but like in spirit of like, if you just invest some money, you're going to get a ton of money back. And like, we've all sort of agreed that pyramid schemes are not super cool.
Right. So I don't know if it's a pyramid scheme, but again, when John Oliver did that bit about televangelists saying like, televangelists do this all the time. Give us your money. It's a seed.
Oh my God, it's their favorite game.
And you'll make money even though you won't.
But if you don't, it's your fault because you didn't pray good.
Right. And they're playing the same game here.
Yeah.
And the thing is, who actually knows about the church finances? You would think the guy at the very top of the food chain, Russell Nelson, would know their financial status. So when he's telling these people in Kenya, we need your tithes, that is how you overcome poverty. Of all the people who knows how much money they make and having these businesses, he's one of them.
Are they at least framing it like, if you tithe, that will establish a Mormon church in this part of Kenya and we will bring in our economic resources?
That is not what he said.
Is that what he could? I'm sorry.
Could he say that? I mean, he could try.
I'm just trying to like give the most.
I know.
Like, I just need to believe that people aren't like completely evil and maybe just kind of shitty.
This is just shitty.
Yeah.
And so if you're a Mormon, just FYI, like this, your tithing is going to a company that doesn't need it. The church is doing just fine. And again, we don't know how fine they're doing, but this small glimpse into their bank statements, more or less, tells you there's so much more under that iceberg,
Billions.
This is the tip of it.
Tens of billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. Want to go to a happier story?
Yeah.
Let me tell you why school shootings happen.
Oh, hey, I have a bunch of reasons why school shootings happen.
Why do school shootings happen?
Don't worry, I have a lot of really good hot takes.
Oh, good.
So, Anne and I actually recorded the day of or the day after the Santa Fe, Texas school shooting. We didn't talk about it at that moment because it wasn't necessarily relevant to what we were going to talk about. But it turns out people have some really cool hot takes about why school shootings happen. My brother's calling me. Hey, Kev, I can't answer your phone. So
priorities. Podcast over family.
You're welcome,
always.
Fans. Gross. So I think what you would like to talk about is probably Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
That's not even what I was going to talk about. What did Dan Patrick say?
Is it Diane Black?
That is what I wanted to talk about.
Okay, well, let's start with her. Talk about her.
So Republican Congresswoman Diane Black, she's from Tennessee. Her answer to what causes school shootings is the availability of pornography, but not just porn. It's the porn that is available on the shelf when you walk in the grocery store, unquote.
Quote, it's available on the shelf when you walk in the grocery store. Yeah, you have to reach up and get it, but there's pornography there. She continued, all this available without parental guidance. I think that's a big part of the root cause, which, LOL, do you think teens are getting porn from grocery stores? Diane, what?
First, what grocery stores is she shopping at?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything more than like a Cosmo at Playboy in like my adult life.
Yeah. Like, no one buys porn.
Right.
One. No one buys porn from grocery stores, two.
Like, girl, what?
When is she going to discover that the internet exists?
I mean, hopefully never, because she can't handle that kind of thing, I don't think.
I don't think she could. So by her logic, like every teenage boy
also,
and girl
just really quick, I just want to walk through her statement. So she says, so it's in the, does she say checkout? On the shelf when you walk in the grocery store.
The shelf. The shelf.
So I'm just wondering, because where I see magazines are always in like the checkout line.
Okay. And there's usually an aisle with some magazines.
You're right.
But they're not porn.
No, because what I was going to say is like, I'm imagining those shelves that are maybe 4 feet high and like you have to reach for them. So like, are you imagining like 6-year-olds are like, nah, I'm in a grocery store unattended. I'm going to get a Playboy.
Also, buy me a gun. Yeah, that's what she thinks happens.
Hey, I looked at this pornography. You know what I want is a fucking gun. Doesn't a gun sound really good right now?
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, Diana Black. Oh, and she's a U.S. Rep who is running for governor of Tennessee. So,
Governor,
hey, Tennessee, maybe keep an eye out for that
Otherwise,
one.
your grocery stores are going to be ruined. It's amazing how far these people have to stretch to not mention access to guns.
Oh my God, how? Don't worry, I have a few other...
go for it.
A few other hot takes.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has been in the spotlight, obviously, because he has, again, hashtag hot takes vis-a-vis this recent shooting. And I don't mean to make light of the shooting. It's just these people are such idiots. I don't know what to tell you. So he was at a press conference and he was asked, like, hey, this is as of the thing I read, and it could be out of date now, the 22nd school shooting of 2018. Also, have you heard the stat? That's a little, we can dig into it, but more kids have died in school shootings in 2018 than military.
I heard that.
So it's sort of a fallacious comparison because the numbers are so it's not there aren't the exact same number of students as there are soldiers, but it's still not great. Like no matter any way you
we should never be
slice
saying
it.
There are more victims of school shootings than anything.
Right. So anyway, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Quote, should we be surprised? In this nation, we've devalued life, whether it's through abortion, whether it's the breakup of families, through violent movies, and particularly violent video games, which now outsell movies and music, which I did a tiny bit of. So he said, psychologists and psychiatrists, like LOL, now you're listening to Science, cool dog, will tell you that students are desensitized to violence, may have lost empathy for their victims by watching hours and hours of violent video games, which I want to be clear, I don't I think there is a discussion to be had with regard to desensitizing young people to violent behavior. Fine. Let's have that conversation. That said, the U.S., all we do is export gun shit, whether it's video games or movies. That's all we do. So interesting, super interesting that this hasn't been a worldwide phenomenon.
As someone tweeted, and I think you retweeted or something, just someone in Australia wow, you guys are worked up about Samantha Bee saying the C word. Who's going to censor us? You're worked up about that. We're kind of worked up about all your people dying of school shootings.
Yep. Yeah, I did retweet that today. He went on to say 97% of teenagers, according to psychiatrists and psychologists, these ambiguous psychiatrists, watch video games, which is, he said twice now in the last 2 paragraphs, and I love that he says people watch video games like they're movies.
Yes, I watch Twitch and then I shoot up a school.
And 85% of those are violent video games. So I did look that up because I was like, that doesn't sound right. It's actually not as wrong as I wish it was.
Really?
Like, I definitely looked it up with the intention of being like, ha, in your face. But he did pull that from a Christian Science Monitor article from 2008, which isn't new or recent. But it is worth note. Statistics from what I found, there's not a ton. Statistics haven't changed significantly.
Well, and none of these shooters are saying, I played Fortnite, so now I'm going to go to school. It's always like, oh, that girl said no to me when I asked her out.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. And I also want to bring up that even given this argument, given your premise, right, that violent video games cause violent behavior, if I grant you that premise, then you would have to explain to me why it is time and time again young white men who are committing this violence when they are not the only people playing these violent video games. I think it's something between 40 and 45% of gamers are women, and you're not seeing this behavior. Same thing goes for bullying. People say, oh, it's bullying that is causing these school shootings. Okay, well, I bet you'd see a lot more kids of color, special needs kids, women, like
other
obese
people
kids,
get bullied.
dorks. Like, they're not, like, I was bullied hard in junior high, like, and it was not anyway, it just, that sort of annoys me. So he said that.
Was he the one who said the
about
doors?
The exits? Yeah, I got that next. Man, Dan Patrick was just a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
So he blamed too many exits and entries. So this has definitely been spun, certainly by sort of the liberal Twitter, because that's sort of what we're good at reducing things to their most absurd point. Yeah. What he did say was, from what we know, the student walked in with a long coat and a shotgun under his coat. It's 90 degrees. Had there been one single entrance possibly for every student, maybe he would have been stopped.
Right, because they would have checked him and they would have found him.
Right. So I have many thoughts on that. One is like, fucking high schoolers are weird. They wear all sorts of dumb shit. I will tell you that right goddamn now. The other thing is, this is not like, whenever I hear things like that of, oh, teachers should be armed, they should have bulletproof XYZ, they should have fewer entrances, I just feel like people are trying harder and harder to make schools into a prison. They're describing a prison. And I guess I don't understand how a person can look at the problem that we have. So the problem that we have is violence in schools. And specifically, school shooters. We don't have an epidemic of people stabbing kids in class. We don't have an epidemic of kids driving their trucks into classes? I don't know. And so, like you kind of mentioned before, their effort to avoid the problem of guns is so expansive that they're willing to say, we need armed guards in every classroom. We need one entrance and one exit. Which
somehow they find money for, not for anything else.
Yeah, not for like fucking books. No. Like, I just find it.
And the other thing is, you're saying if we had one entrance, then everyone would come through. We could catch the kid with the gun. But the thing is, you're trying to solve a problem, like, without getting to the root cause of the problem.
Correct. You're attacking
why do we have to buy more or find a solution for more security?
Right.
And not, how did that kid get his dad's gun?
And you're attacking the symptom and not the root. Right. Like, these people a civilian, let alone a kid, shouldn't have access to a weapon that is designed to murder people.
Let's give teachers guns. It's like, how about just no to guns.
It's all,
get them away.
It's all bonkers. It's all so next level. And I don't know. I just, for some reason, the thing that really bothers me is when people are like intellectually dishonest. For some reason, like, I feel like if we're not having an honest conversation about the problem, then we're never going to find a solution. So when people talk about, like, it's not guns, it's XYZ, I don't think you're being honest here, because you're not doing anything to solve XYZ.
You're purposely trying to avoid that conversation.
Right. Or, oh, it's not guns, it's mental illness. Okay, what the fuck are you doing about mental illness? Like, since when are the Republicans backing major initiatives to make sure people have, like, mental health screenings and mentally unwell people have a place to live where they're not a danger to themselves or their family or their community? Since when is that, like, a Republican thing? So don't talk to me about it's everything but this when you don't even want to solve everything else.
I thought them saying, thoughts and prayers after school shootings was the dumbest thing they could say. Mm-hmm. And now it seems like they've kind of stopped doing that as much, but now they're going to the dumbest possible reasons.
They're
Instead, if we just solve this, everything will be okay.
Yes.
It's like, go back to saying thoughts and prayers. You were less dumb when you were saying that.
Yes. And it's just, I don't know. And this isn't like a fresh take from me, but like how can you be a person who is actually in power, a person who actually has the ability to make legislation to potentially make this stop, and you are literally saying like our thoughts and prayers are with, like, how can you sleep at night? It's unconscionable.
It's called the Marco Rubio syndrome.
Fucking Marco Rubio. Last hot take from the Santa Fe school shooting.
Yeah.
So shit, I meant to look this up. Her name's either Shayna or Shanna Fisher. She is one of the first children who was murdered in her high school. She was 16 years old. You may have heard about her because Fisher famously was harassed by the eventual shooter. He was asking her out. He was making advances to her over and over and over again. She kept saying no, and then finally, and he wouldn't stop. And finally, she said something in front of the class and embarrassed him in front of the class to get him to stop because she was being harassed by a person. And so whether that was a triggering point for him or not, what the narrative became, and this is after, like, pulled from a quote from her mother, who is saying she's been harassed by this guy for 4 months. And the narrative, the story, the headline that was pulled out of that is Reuters, spurned advances provoked Texas school shooting, victim's mother says. Or the Daily Mail, rejected advances may have spurned Santa Fe shooter.
As if it was the girl's fault.
As if it was the girl's fault. And again, like, focusing on anything that isn't the actual issue at hand, which is gun violence and it's fucking male fragility and toxic masculinity. That's what like over and over we're seeing these men and boys who are lashing out because they're not getting everything they think they were promised, and this is where we are, and it's absolutely upsetting. And I want to, as a sidebar in my own sort of interests, do you know about the Golden State Killer? Have we talked?
We've talked about it, I think, briefly.
Yeah. So the Golden State Killer was a serial rapist and murderer who terrorized Northern California through the 70s, Southern California through the 80s. He was just caught a couple of weeks ago. It's been a huge thing. And so it's the Golden State Killer, because it was such a long unsolved case. People were there. You can analyze it a million different ways. And one of them was victims would hear him either muttering Bonnie or Mommy, and they weren't sure which it was. And so now that this man has been arrested, they find out he did have like a childhood sweetheart or like a young relationship with a woman named Bonnie, and because they split up, he sort of went off the rails. And I swear to fucking God, the hot takes of like, did Bonnie like trigger the Golden State Killer? And this is a man who broke into people's homes, tied up husbands, put plates on their back so he could rape the wives. And they're like, but Bonnie should have just gone out with him. He would have been totally fine. And so it not only is gross, not only is it shifting blame, but it's removing women's bodily autonomy by being like, you need to do whatever you can to placate the men around you. If that means fucking a guy you don't even like, so be it. Otherwise,
for the good of society.
Yeah, like how do you fucking like intellectually wrap your mind around that? Anyway, that was my thing about hot takes.
Burn that piece of paper. Here is a maybe happier. Okay.
Is that Paige Patterson?
No.
Sometimes I think I can read your mind and like know what you're going to say next.
I did want to talk about, there's nothing, I don't have anything much to say. He got fired, and for a short time they were giving him his retirement package and calling him president emeritus of his seminary. And then finally they're like, a woman came forward and said, I was raped. Not by him, but like I was raped while I was a student at his school. Went to him for advice. He said, don't report it and forgive your rapist.
Cool.
That's
Chill
for
as
a while.
usual.
So when they eventually, the people who said, we'll keep you on board as president emeritus, keep paying you, they said, you know what? We're taking away your retirement package too.
Cool.
Good. That's what you should have done.
Yeah.
I heard today he resigned from the board of directors from another Christian university. It looks like the fallout is finally happening. Not completely yet.
Yeah.
As far as I know, he's still speaking, scheduled to speak at the Southern Baptist Convention in a month or two.
Just read the notes that I wrote for this. It's circled.
Paige Patterson, we talked about him before. He sucks. The Southern Baptist did a good thing. I agree. Good job with your notes.
That's all I wrote. So I don't want to brag that I'm a really good researcher, but I think it's pretty evident here.
Yes. Here's a slightly happier story. We've talked about this in some capacity before, but the question I would pose is like, who has the right to solemnize your wedding ceremony? Like the person who's saying do you take this man, do you take this woman, whatever, who gets to do that? Who gets to do that so that it counts, legally speaking?
Well, me, because I am an officiant of the Church of Life ?
The Universal Life Church?
Yeah.
So that's the thing where you can go online, pay some money, and you get ordained as a minister in this online church.
Yeah.
And the whole story behind that, like, why do you have to do that, is because in some states, the law says you have to be a religious minister in order to officiate a wedding and have it count under the law.
I've never thought about that in my entire fucking life.
That's why you got to go to Universal Life Church, because that's the only way it counts, because they're technically a church, but really the whole church's purpose is to let you do the sort of thing you did.
I could have been Jedi Jessica.
But you could have been Jedi Jessica too, yeah. But you can't just be Jessica, even if you went through formal training as a humanist celebrant or a secular celebrant. Like, even if you went through the training to do that sort of thing, it wouldn't count. At least a few years ago in Illinois, where we are, it wouldn't have counted. And the only other people who get to perform it are judges or, certain government officials.
Boat captains, if I remember anything goes correctly.
Maybe in some states.
I think that's the thing, like ship this is probably old, but I think ship captains.
Maybe in some states, if you have a certain title or a government position or you were in the
1930s
Navy.
musical theater was lying to me. It's hard to say.
So the thing is, in some states, you have to be a government official, like a judge, or you have to be a religious minister. But if you are a trained secular celebrant, no, doesn't count.
Interesting.
And so what we've seen in the past several years is a legal battle to try to change that. So in Indiana, for example, where atheists were essentially banned from officiating these weddings.
Just banned writ large.
They filed a lawsuit saying we're trained secular celebrants. Let us perform these marriages so that they count. You shouldn't have to have your friend who's a secular celebrant officiate your wedding, but then you got to go to the court to have it really count. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Which is what some people did. Like my friend performs the ceremony, but I still got to get it signed off by the courts or whatever. And they actually lost the initial battle, but then the appeals court said, you know what, we're overturning that decision. In Indiana now, if you're a trained secular celebrant, you're good to go. In Illinois, that just happened last year.
Whoa.
They won that battle.
Do I need to check on the weddings that I officiated to see if they're legal?
Your friends are not married.
Oh, no.
No, but you got the Universal Life Church thing, so it counts.
Oh, okay.
But we actually talked to Galen Brodus, who was the plaintiff in that case last year. He won that case, but in Illinois, it's legal now. In Ohio, they try to legislatively change the law to just say anyone who went through training or whatever could do it. That bill didn't pass. So in Ohio, it's still not an issue.
What's the argument against it?
And in Oregon, a bill like that did pass. The argument against it is you have to be some sort of trained professional, but it's a religious thing. It's a wedding. So the answer is there's no reason to say no.
That's all I needed.
And the reason I bring all this up is in Michigan, this is the law too, where you got to be religious or you got to be a government official. They just filed a lawsuit. The Center for Inquiry just announced yesterday, I believe, that they have filed a lawsuit on behalf of two atheists who are secular celebrants and trained to perform these weddings, but they can't because the law doesn't allow it right now in Michigan. So they just sued, and they're saying the Michigan law violates the Constitution. It's religious discrimination, basically. Yeah. Saying we go through the same stuff religious people do, in order to officiate these weddings, and yet you're discriminating against us. They actually pointed out, why deny the same basic right to the religiously unaffiliated who make up a quarter of Michigan's population? One of the plaintiffs actually is Ed Brayton, who is a blogger at Dispatches from the Culture Wars. He writes at Patheos along with me. So yay for that. Jennifer Behan, who runs CFI Michigan, is the other plaintiff. Both of them know what they're doing. They're trained on this stuff. Really, there's no argument. Like, I don't see them hitting any obstacles in this lawsuit.
I'm not
this is
sure
not
how they
this
could
is,
justify it.
There's no ambiguity here. This is pretty clear cut. So good on them. I hope it keeps going.
Interesting.
They actually filed a lawsuit against a county clerk, I believe, where they both live in Michigan. So they filed it against their county clerk, though they could have done it against anyone in Michigan.
Yeah.
But
isn't it interesting the fights that we're still having?
yeah, this is one of those stupid fights. Like, why do we
Yeah.
have to fight for this one? They should fix this legislatively. By the way, in Michigan, they did try to ask their elected officials to file a bill to change the law. They got nowhere with it, which is
Really?
why it's controlled by Republicans. Michigan is. So they got nowhere with it. That is why they have to resort to a lawsuit.
Interesting.
Yeah. And while we're on the subject of lawsuits, let me talk about another one that came to a conclusion this week. And this is an interesting case because it comes from Michael Newdow, who was the guy who tried to get under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance or declared unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And the little bit of technical history you need to know about his case is he wanted to get under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance, or at least he said the pledge is unconstitutional if you're making kids say it because of the words under God. And in the Ninth Circuit in California, the appeals court that oversees California where he lives, which is considered the most liberal appeals court in the country, the 3 judges who randomly got assigned to this particular case, 2 of them said, yeah, you have a good point, and said saying the Pledge of Allegiance is unconstitutional.
Right.
It got appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, basically on a technicality, we're going to dismiss the whole case, so it's legal again. Whatever. This is what happened years ago.
Right.
So his latest argument is he's trying to get in God We Trust off of our money. And his argument here is by putting in God We Trust on the money, you're basically, it's government establishment of religion. And
it's like the definition of it.
yeah, kind of. And the thing is, here's what's interesting. You would think he would say this is a violation of the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause. You are a government establishing a religion. He's actually taking a different approach on this case. He's actually pulling a Hobby Lobby, saying this violates my religious freedom because basically
I'm being forced to use this legal tender.
Yes, and you're making me violate my religious views. Here's what he basically says. For those who feel that being forced by the government to carry a message that violates my religious ideals, it's substantially burdensome on my religious views. So he's using the Hobby Lobby argument that got them out of providing contraception to women.
Which was gross then, and I'm not thrilled about its use now.
Sure.
But
now his strategy here is this. There are 12 circuit courts in the nation. He's going to go to every single one of them.
And one of them is going to...
And maybe one of them would say, you have a point, and then by all means, take it to the Supreme Court, and maybe there's some success there. But he's trying to use a different argument than the Establishment Clause, because we've had that argument, and basically every court has said, in God we trust isn't saying a particular God. It's a ceremonial thing. It's ceremonial deism. Like, we're not going to argue that in God we trust is a promotion of religion or an endorsement of religion.
Which is so silly. It's so silly on its face.
But unfortunately, this is the way the courts have ruled.
Right.
So this is why he's trying the other strategy. Well, in this case, he actually put out a call on my website, like trying to find plaintiffs for these cases. He actually got a whole bunch of them. In one particular case, and this is one that covers the appeals court that oversees Michigan and Ohio, they had 41 plaintiffs, and they were including unnamed parents and their kids, named individuals, the Michigan Atheists, a group, the Northern Ohio Free Thought Society, and in fact, one Jewish rabbi who signed on to it too. And what they said is the defendants have the government has substantially burdened the plaintiffs in the exercise of their atheistic and similar beliefs by requiring them as the price to pay for using the nation's coins and currency bills to personally bear a religious message that is the antithesis of what they consider to be religious truth. In the case of the Jewish rabbi, they were using the word God, which is what he didn't like on it, too.
Yeah.
And so anyway, this was their argument.
God.
a lower court said, this is stupid, tossed it.
Yeah.
So they went to the appeals court, which is part of his strategy. And the interesting thing here is, this is what happened this week. The 3 judges who got assigned to this case, they lost. But they lost 2-1. It wasn't unanimous.
Oh, I see.
And so had one more judge gone in their direction and said, you have a point, there would be chaos everywhere.
What are your thoughts on this?
It's an interesting thing because, like, am I burdened by In God We Trust on the money? No, I never think about it. And this is what I found interesting.
Should it be there?
No, it shouldn't be there.
Probably also no.
It shouldn't be there. Maybe we should have litigated this in the 50s when it got on there. But
here's the 50s.
This is where I think
they were busy with poodle skirts.
This is where the lawsuit itself you roll your eyes at it. Because they have to argue in the lawsuit, here is the burden on all of these plaintiffs. Let me read you some of the burdens that they stated.
Sorry, is this as like a class action suit, or is this specifically...
It's not class action. It's specifically these 41 people are saying this hurts us.
Okay.
And here's how. Example, plaintiff doesn't want to carry a religious message that is the antithesis of her atheistic beliefs. Plaintiff, a child, number 1, anonymous, is made to feel that his beliefs are abnormal and not accepted by government or by society.
Which is true.
Okay. Another person, parent, anonymous, worries that his daughter will claim beliefs she doesn't actually hold just to fit in.
I've done that.
Another person, passing American money to others, at times during foreign travel, places him in the uncomfortable position of proselytizing for a religious notion that he finds false and repulsive. Another person, spreading this monotheistic message against her will is a loathsome repudiation of her self-esteem. So this is like them almost grasping at straws, trying to find reasons to say In God We Trust hurts us, when the truth is, I think all of us would be like, well, that shouldn't be there. Now let me buy this smutty magazine from a grocery store. That's the entire thought process that goes into using the money.
Or more accurately, they'd say, I forgot what a $5 bill looked like because I use a debit card because it's 2018.
Right. And honestly, that is what the judge, I think the lower court judge who dismissed the lawsuit is like, no one's forcing you to use bills now more than ever.
Yeah.
Like, if this is seriously a problem for any of you people, use a goddamn credit card, is what the judge basically said.
God, this is a tricky one because I do want to be very because I do believe they are...
If I may interrupt you for a second. The judge in the lower court said specifically, and I'm quoting here, credit cards and checks allow plaintiffs to conduct the bulk of their purchases with currency and checks with currency not inscribed with the motto. As for cash-only transactions, quote, such as a garage sale or coin-operated laundromat, throwing some shade there.
Sure.
The use of the motto on currency does not substantially burden your free exercise.
Which, like, yes and no. I get, like, listen, this is definitely a situation where I see all sides. Like, it's not a cute lawsuit. Like, it's not a good look for us. But I also believe they're fundamentally right. It's just this weird squicky thing of, like, you have to fit yourself into the law and you have to give a legal argument because nobody would take me seriously if I rolled up to a court and was like, guys, this is bullshit, and you know it.
Right,
like,
and that doesn't work in courts.
Which
you
is
have
weird
to have
because
standing.
I make really compelling arguments in that way. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the nativity scenes on like government property. Like,
when those lawsuits are filed against nativity scenes, say at City Hall, the atheists say, I have to walk past this. This is what they say. I have to walk past it every day, and it's a reminder that I am an outcast, which actually fares better. And that lower court judge actually echoed what you're saying now and said, one, she said, like the Obergefell case, the gay marriage case, she said in that situation, the plaintiffs who had to make an argument, like, they were genuinely hurt by the law as it stood, and the laws affected all citizens equally, regardless of their religious beliefs. The judge actually said, your argument against In God We Trust is better suited for an establishment clause argument. You should be arguing this is government endorsement of religion.
is that not what they were doing?
No, because they're using the other strategy here. on purpose because the Establishment Clause argument never works in court. And so the judge is like, yeah, this is stupid. You should go back to the losing strategy,
right?
Which we know hasn't worked.
But when I bring up the nativity thing, it's more that like I 100% think it's inappropriate for nativity scenes to be presented on government property. I also hate seeing this shit in the news because it does not make us look great. It feels really petty, and just from a PR perspective. And this is
and
not
my response to that argument, because I hear that from other people too, is I agree to some extent. It doesn't make us look good. At the same time, what else are you gonna do? Who cares?
Again, to be clear. It's not that I'm against that kind of thing. It just like, it's not a thing that I'm like super stoked to tell people about.
Right.
Like there are things that I get really excited that like the secular movement is doing. This isn't necessary. And you know what? Maybe I'm part of the problem that like, maybe if like bystanders like me were like, you know what? Like this is what I'm going to put all my effort towards. It would, as it were, I'm busy yelling at men.
Michael Newdow, I haven't asked him specifically for this, but I think if I can read his mind here, he knows that's the response he's going to get.
Right.
So this is his strategy. He's saying, look, by the way, the dissenting, it was a 2-1 decision to just keep that lower court judge who tossed out your case. She was right. 2-1 is the decision here to keep that lower court decision. The one judge who said Newdow has a point actually said, you all have legal standing to bring the case, or most of you do. Some of them are just, she basically said, are dumb. But most of you have legal standing to bring this case, and that pursuing this strategy, she said, is a legitimate way to fight it. But she added in her dissent that, like, you don't really face a substantial burden.
That's the thing.
So I'm on your side in terms of strategy, and this is where she differed from her 2 other colleagues. But she's like, but you don't really have a case here.
In their defense, as soon as you said that, I just had my thought of like, we all said that about fucking Hobby Lobby too. Like, really, this is really burdens. Really, you're losing sleep.
You can't sign a form that says we don't want to do this. That was their problem.
That's your burden. So, like, okay, you know what? I've talked myself into a new opinion. Yeah, it's fucking, it's bullshit. Like, if it is hard, it's too hard for people in Hobby Lobby to be like, they have to get birth control somewhere else, then yeah, it's too fucking hard for me to hand over a quarter that says in God we trust, because we don't.
Yeah. In terms of Newdow's strategy, there are 12 appeals courts in the nation.
Really? That's it?
That's it. They cover the whole country. 5 of them now, after this ruling, 5 of them have not ruled on In God We Trust on the money. The other ones basically have and said, this is stupid, go away. 5 more are left. Knowing him, he is going to try to pursue this case in all 5 of those areas with plaintiffs who are local to those areas and working with them. Because, again, he has 5 more chances in his perspective to win this battle.
Is that kosher for the term to just bounce around to each court?
There's nothing stopping anybody from doing that. In fact, that is a legal strategy in a lot of cases. Like the Iowa thing, they tried to restrict abortion to make it as hard as possible. The strategy there is we need to do it somewhere. Iowa's legislature has the people in it, the Republicans in it, to pass this law to basically ban abortion in any meaningful way. And we know we're going to get sued for it, and they have. We know it's going to get appealed, and we may lose that lawsuit too. But it's going to get to the Supreme Court.
They're trying
They don't actually care about that it happened in Iowa. They just need to happen somewhere. It's a strategy everyone uses. In fact, if I have this right, the anti-sodomy laws, Lawrence v. Texas.
I'm sorry, those are still a thing?
No. But when they were a thing, the people who are like, we need to overturn this law because it shouldn't be on the books, even if it's not really enforced. They were like, we just need a test case somewhere where we can file the lawsuits to get it up to the Supreme Court. It happened to be used in Texas. And they were like, we have a test case here. And like the people who are aware of this sort of stuff are like, we're going to pounce on that. And we're going to use that to get to, and they did. So it's like the strategy of bouncing around to see which appeals courts, whatever,
is fine.
Totally legit. That's why a lot of church-state separation people, they love like the California cases, because like
Sure.
that's going to the Ninth Circuit, and a lot of those Ninth Circuit judges are fairly liberal. That's changing under Trump. Thank you very much, Jill Stein voters. Like whatever.
They're both the same.
The Ninth
Hillary and
Circuit
Trump are
judges,
basically, I swear to fucking God.
tend to be more liberal. So
Yeah.
they're like, we may have a better shot at getting to the Supreme Court if we go through the Ninth Circuit, whatever. So it's a legit strategy that exists. I got two more quick ones for you. You got any others?
I've got a rant that I wrote down,
Go
which is
for
unusual.
it.
No. I want to close out.
Okay. Let me bring up, this just happened, I think, yesterday, but the Minnesota Archdiocese, not the Minnesota Archdiocese, the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis in Minnesota, they have for years, I'm not going to get into details here, but they've had to deal with the sexual assault, child abuse thing, like many Catholic
Things have been
churches
going
have.
great.
Yeah. So in 2016, they were trying to settle all of these cases that were brought about. And they were like, we will give the victims of child sex abuse, the ones who have come forward, said our priests have molested you or abused you in some way. We'll give you $132 million for all of this to like
Per
go
person,
away.
right?
Not per person, but all
Per
together.
victim.
Yeah. And you know what the victims and their lawyers said? Not enough. Keep going. We know you have more money than that.
That sound I made was me flipping double birds
That
because
was
I'm a
good.
badass.
There you go. On Thursday, actually, the Archdiocese announced a new settlement, and this one the victims very likely will accept, $210 million. So they upped it a lot.
Yeah.
$210 million for 450 people. This will go into a pot that will basically be divvied up. I did the math already.
you.
You're welcome.
I forgot how many
It comes
zeros
out-
were in a million. I was really nervous.
It comes out to it's about $467,000 on average. Now, depending on the type of abuse or whatever happened to individuals, it'll be more or less. But again, this is the largest payout among churches that have filed for bankruptcy protection, which this diocese has.
Really?
It is the second largest payout ever because in 2007, the Archdiocese of Los Angeles had to pay out $660 million.
Is there a big Catholic population in Los Angeles?
Enough. Yeah, I mean, it's Los Angeles. There's a lot of people.
guess.
But $660 million to 508 victims in Los Angeles.
Wow.
This is the second largest payout. And I will give some credit to the Archbishop now, the current one, who I don't...
This is in Minnesota?
Yeah,
Okay.
who I don't know how much he was involved in the particular cases that were at issue here. But what he said is, one, the settlement avoids further litigation and expense, and that allows the church to carry on.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said to the survivors, I recognize that the abuse stole so much from you, your childhood, your innocence, your safety, your ability to trust, and in many cases, your faith. The church let you down. I'm very sorry. It's the right thing to say, I think.
Hey guys, if you're going to apologize, that's what an apology looks like.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm sorry to anybody who was offended by what I said.
Right.
That's
It's-
not how an apology
The church
goes.
let you down is an understatement, but at least he said
No,
that.
but
And
I
this-
understand what it cost you is an important thing.
Yeah, and again, I don't even know that he's the guy to blame for all of this because I don't know if this guy is the one that's been around forever.
God, I feel like
So-
blaming any one person is tricky.
And he's not the guy who molested them. So
Right.
he's the spokesperson for the Archdiocese,
Right.
more or less.
Just a tag on
Yeah.
that is I want to sort of make sure we're framing it in a way that so when we talk about lawsuits, we talk about what somebody is paid out for whatever, whether they were hurt or whether they were harmed in any kind of way. So not only is it about making sure these people get some sort of financial compensation for the physical and emotional pain and suffering they went to, but the other side of it is to make it cost so much for the Catholic Church to deal with the repercussions of these actions that they don't do it again. So I want to make, like, when we say, oh, they rejected this offer, it's not they
wanted more money
no,
per se.
you need to make it hurt for the and the Catholic Church has money
Now,
coming out of its eyes.
I should point out that this $210 million settlement, $170 million will probably be covered by their insurance. So the church itself is paying about $40 million.
Hey, I'm sorry.
There is insurance for this.
Just really quick, I don't know how insurance works. Are you telling me there's an insurance for
For child rape by priests.
how does insurance work?
Dude, I would love to know the answer. Hey, hit us up if you know the answer to that. I don't know how that works.
How is the world working? I don't understand.
Churches can buy rape insurance.
I don't know where money comes from or goes to anymore.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah.
Money just appears for people.
If you were Mormon, you would know.
Do
that's
you know
called a
why there's-
callback.
Yeah, that was
You're
a good
welcome.
callback. Also, did you know why there's a big Mormon population in Las Vegas?
Right.
Because in like the 1950s and 60s, when they were like established in Las Vegas, the only people the mobsters trusted to, I'm like 80% sure this is true. The only people the mobsters trusted to like run their books were Mormons.
Nice.
And so to this day, there's a huge Mormon population in Las Vegas. God, I hope that's true. I did see that in the History Channel a while ago.
Then it's not true.
Somebody let me know if that's wrong. Because I hope that's a true story because that's kind of interesting.
The 40 million that the Archdiocese has to cover, quote, will come from parishes, the Archdiocese, a pension fund, and real estate sales. So it will
they're going to
still-
have to sell off their commercial
I know.
real estate that they've been leasing out to fucking UPS.
It will still hurt them, but it's not $210 million worth of hurt.
Okay.
But hey, by the way, all your tithing money, if you're Catholic in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, your tithe money's going to pay out some of these people.
So, oh my God, I'm like seeing red right now because there's no responsibility. There's no culpability. If you're in whether you're a company or whether you're a human being at a certain level of power, nothing can fucking hurt you.
Here's what I don't know the answer to, because it's been a while since I looked up the specifics of the Minnesota case, which is that the priests who are the ones who did the raping and molesting, I don't know if the issue is that they all died because it happened decades ago.
I hope they died. I'm saying it on the radio.
Or if just the statute of limitations had run out and that's why they couldn't do
Chill
more
as
than that.
usual, statute of limitations.
Yeah. So I don't know. But yeah, no one's going to jail as far as I know over this. But at least the church is getting some sort of punishment.
You know, the Golden State Killer raped at least 50 people that we know about, and he's not going to get brought up on any of the, yes, he's going to jail, but he's not going to get brought up on any of those charges because the statute of limitations has already run out, and I think it's garbage. I don't understand how it works necessarily, but I hate it.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I woke up my dog by yelling and slamming.
I got one last one for
Yeah.
you, which is a silly story, but it exists.
Cool,
Which
because
is
I'm going to close this out on a bummer.
we know homeopathic medicine is ridiculous, right?
Yes.
Like the whole idea of that here's one little substance of something that might help you, but we're going to dilute it.
No.
with
I'm sorry.
water.
I want to backtrack.
Yeah.
Something that might help you. That's not true. They focus on like cures like. So if you can't sleep, your sleeping pill is caffeine diluted a zillion times.
So one thing that
It's not even that it might help you. It will definitely hurt you in the long run, but if it's diluted enough.
But yeah. So they're going to dilute the hell out of the one thing. So we're talking about like a speck of sand in an ocean.
Yes.
That's what homeopathy is. Well, a doctor in California who has a medical license of this moment is not just selling homeopathy. And he's not just selling homeopathy that he says will cure Ebola, swine flu, and other illnesses. He's selling homeopathic sound files that you can download and listen to through your headphones.
What are you talking about?
That's a good question. What am I talking about? If you're listening to this...
Can I just guess?
I was going to say, if you're listening to this podcast right now, just think for a moment, what on earth is a homeopathic sound file?
Can I guess, and can you tell me how far off I am?
Please do.
Okay, so this is so dumb. My guess is that if the Friendly Atheist podcast was transformed into a homeopathic sound file, what it would be is me standing in that mire that's half a mile away and going, church. But the microphones are still here in my kitchen.
I don't think you're that far
Really?
off.
Okay, because that's my understanding. Literally what I just described is my understanding of homeopathy.
Okay, think about a homeopathic remedy. Think about that. And here's what I think he does. I'm going to say it simply, and then I'll read you what he says on his site. He basically takes vials of the homeopathic treatment and then puts it in like a wire coil and records the resulting sound.
No, that's worse than the thing I said. I thought I was saying the most ridiculous thing I could think of.
Here's what he says on his website. By the way, I'll give you the doctor's name. I don't know why I'm hiding it.
Yeah,
the doctor's name is Dr. William Edwin Gray III, because there's a lot of this guy.
That's a waste of a really cool name.
Yeah. Here's what he says. It was found that placing a sealed quartz tube with the treatment containing the remedy had the same effect in his tests.
But he's right.
Then an electric coil connected to an oscilloscopic
It super had the same effect,
was
Hammond.
put around the tube containing the remedy. The signal was amplified and sent to a coil surrounding another quartz tube containing plain water.
'Cause
He's
0 equals
diluting
0.
the sound file. And this was placed in the tadpole water, producing the same effect. Thus, the homeopathic effect is purely electromagnetic.
Sounds like
None
fucking
of that makes any
science,
sense.
my
But the
dude.
funniest part about this is he took homeopathic remedies, which is already diluted to the point of
Garbage.
uselessness,
Yeah.
made it into a sound file, then diluted the sound file,
So it's
and-
extra strong homeopathy.
and he says this cures Ebola. Ebola.
Yeah, no, super
By
responsible.
the way,
This guy
I'm
should
not-
definitely still be a
I'm not
doctor.
turning my computer around because that will ruin everything we just did. But he has diagrams of all of
Wait,
this.
I want to look. I'm coming around to look. You keep talking.
He has diagrams of here's the test tube and the coil.
Are those hand drawn? Oh no, that's photo. That's like.
This is Microsoft Paint Professional.
I don't even know it's Microsoft Paint. It might just be a Word doc. And he was like, "How do I put shapes into things?"
So by the way,
it looked very scientific. It had arrows and everything.
the reason this is a story is because the state of California, including their attorney general, is now working to revoke his medical license.
Oh, right.
I know.
That's incredible.
They had a 5-page accusation alleging gross negligence and threatening to take away his medical license.
yeah,
and
all
they
joking
said,
aside, that's hella irresponsible.
to state the obvious, they said in the thing, quote, there is no well-documented evidence in the peer-reviewed scientific literature that homeopathic remedies can be transmitted electronically via sound waves.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
You
you
know
for
what's
that.
weird about this, though? Besides everything, this guy went to Stanford Medical School. Real. He went there.
Not
he got in there.
Not like
Not
Stanford with a PH.
right. Right. It's not Stanford with the PH. It's legit Stanford. And here's the thing. Here's the sad thing about this. This guy totally doesn't care if they revoke his license because he doesn't use his medical license.
This is what I'm saying. There's just no consequences for people.
Yeah, he's a homeopathic
You know what?
practitioner. No one
Fuck
goes
it.
to a
Put this guy
homeopathic.
in fucking jail. This man is practicing medicine, quote unquote, practicing medicine. People are coming to him saying like, "You're a doctor. I trust you with my health care," and he's giving them not even garbage. Like somehow
He
worse
found a way.
than garbage.
He
it's
found a way to make
nothing.
homeopathic medicine even less useful.
Which is like,
That's
God,
impressive
how
in a
does
way.
math do? Because like zero, what's less than
Right,
zero?
like
Hammond?
a homeopathic remedy is like 1 in a gazillion. Like that's the active substance.
Sure.
And he found a way to dilute that in an even more useless way.
to
It's
one in.
gazillion squared. Sad
Man,
part is I took classes on infinity.
It's been a long
I
time
know.
since you taught
It
math,
really has.
buddy.
This guy actually said, "You know what? If they take away my license, quote, fighting
I'll
the
still
board,
make the rest of the money. It doesn't
fighting
matter.
the board, fighting the medical board, would cost too much money. Frankly, I think we'd lose anyway." He doesn't care because the people who would
knows.
go to him they're
They
not
don't care.
impressed
They don't
by your
care.
titles. They are just give me something. They're not impressed by his Stanford medical degree. They're impressed by a confident guy who could say, "I have a cure for Ebola." So
I think Stanford graduates should sue him and be like, "You made me look like an asshole because I also graduated from Stanford, and look at you. Look at yourself."
yeah. So that is a thing that really exists, that guy. So tell me about this rant.
So I've been thinking about this for the last 24 hours. So essentially, it's Friday, the June 1st. Happy June. It's, I think,
Hey,
officially
look at that.
summer. It's finally nice out. You've got a tan line from your glasses, so that's how I know you're a summer boy.
I'm just brown.
No. You have a really cute, nose bridge.
Oh, thank you.
It's really nice looking. I was like, Hammett, you're really brown today. He didn't take it as a compliment. Okay. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the last 24-hour news cycle from when we're recording with regard to Roseanne Barr and Samantha Bee.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to be clear that this all hit home to me in a very real way because I, as a woman in podcasting, basically, like every other iTunes review is about either my language or my voice or my tone or how loud I am or how much I laugh or how much I interrupt Hemet and his really important musings that cannot be interrupted.
I detect sarcasm in that statement.
Hemet, you're very smart. So this sort of like really like insightful look on language and its use and what it means, I think is very interesting and pertinent to sort of my life. So two big stories we've seen. And if you're not aware of it, bless your heart, like you're living your best life. So we saw two big stories regarding famous women saying shit about other famous women. And if that is sort of all you look at it, it does feel like two very similar stories. It's really easy to point them and say the left is as bad as the right. So Roseanne Barr made a racist slur. Oh, fuck, I forgot her name.
Valerie Jarrett.
Thank you, Valerie Jarrett. Comparing her to
an ape or something?
The Planet of the Apes and the gang in Los Angeles.
MS-13.
MS-13, thank you. So that's what she did, and there was
just flat out, she's
like not even padded or contextualized.
Yeah.
It was just like this plus this equals her
Valerie
initials.
Jarrett, yeah.
And then about 24 hours later, or I guess that evening, but it broke the news cycle, Samantha Bee called Ivanka Trump a feckless cunt, which, God, is a top-shelf insult.
Wait, so I didn't get to see this episode because I was out of the country, and I went to go look for it. It's not even on YouTube right now. They took down the whole episode.
I just watched the clip before to make sure I had...
But my understanding of this, tell me if I'm wrong, is that she was basically saying, Ivanka, you have influence over your father.
Yes.
So as a mother...
Yes.
Do something about immigration, you feckless cunt. That was the context.
Exactly. And it specifically was sort of nodding toward the tone-deaf nature of a tweet that Ivanka Trump put out over the weekend. So there's been this new study, not new study, but new reports are coming out that there's something like 1,500 kids who cross the border, some illegally, some super legally, and were unceremoniously torn from their parents and put in separate detention centers, maybe across the country, even if they, and I want to be clear, even if they're coming across the border legally, they were still torn apart. And these are kids as young as 18 months. We're not talking like 16-year-old kids who might be okay. And the damage that this kind of thing can do to a child that young is untold. This is going to fuck that kid up. Even if everything is like righted from here on out, that is a psychological toll that is going to be taken out of that kid. What Samantha Bee was saying was, okay, while in the news cycle we're talking about children, and I'm sorry, I did not even finish the shit that's going down. Not only were these kids ripped from their parents, but then the federal government subsequently lost track of 1,500 of them. They don't necessarily know where they are, and honestly, not that concerned about it. They're fine. They're 3. They can make their way in the world. They can reach shelves almost. So
this is what Samantha Bee was referring to.
So Samantha Bee was saying, like, in the context, like, not only have you been standing behind your father who's said horrible things about women, enacted policies that were harmful towards women, all while you're pretending to be this champion of the working woman. How could you do that? And then in addition, Ivanka put out this tweet or Instagram or whatever on, I think, Sunday of her with her kid. A very sweet picture of her just being like, oh, best part of my day or whatever. And many people saw that as extremely tone deaf to be like, hey, we're dealing with this national crisis of,
mothers
1,500
who can't see their kids.
Not even that they can't see their kids, but they don't know where their kids are. And our government took them away. That's not great for us as a country. That feels much more like 1930s Germany than anything else. So that's the context of what Samantha Bee said. So I am willing to have the conversation that what Samantha Bee said was maybe unhelpful or not helping our cause or sort of damaging our side. And I think I could be convinced. I'm honestly sort of on the fence. Do I think feckless cunt is an excellent insult? Yes. I will go to my grave thinking that. could I be convinced that like that was sort of an inappropriate thing to say? Also, yes. Like that's not a hill I'm going to die on. But I want to make sure that we don't blur these two news stories together because they happen so close and they are on the surface very similar. So Roseanne Barr said an extremely racist thing. She made a comment about this woman, this accomplished woman, based solely on her race and based on nothing else. All she commented on was she looks like this, and it was very superficial. What Samantha Bee said was that she said I wrote a lot of this down because I was mad earlier. She said a really mean thing about a woman based on that woman's aggressive refusal to help the women and children she pretends to champion. The comment, yeah, we talked about that. So to post an admittedly lovely picture of Ivanka and her kid is tone deaf to say the least. To be clear, you can take issue with name calling. You can say cunt is a misogynist word. It arguably is. Do I like saying it? Yes. It's very satisfying to say phonetically. You can say that we sunk to her level. Those are all okay arguments. But as soon as you start equating Roseanne Barr to what Samantha Bee said, that's when I have a huge problem. So Lindy West, before the Samantha Bee thing came out, wrote a must-read article in the New York Times, which I fucking love Lindy West. If you haven't read her book, Shrill, it's excellent. She said, quote, Roseanne was not canceled because it's mean or horrible to compare a black person to an ape, though it is both of those things. It was canceled because it carries the weight of both historic horrors and current atrocities. Because comparing a black person to an ape nods to a historically rooted yet increasingly emboldened far-right hate movement whose chosen figurehead, Donald Trump, is the president of the United States. Because it's our collective responsibility to not let that movement win, to fight to be a better country, and right now, cultural power is all we have. So basically saying somebody did a shitty thing is not the same thing as calling somebody a racist name is not the same thing as calling somebody a racist. Because one thing is, yes, please.
Can I take issue with what she said there?
Go ahead.
Which is that I don't know that ABC canceled it because she just went over the line, because Roseanne has gone over the line all the time, and they were fine with it when she was making the money.
Yes.
But the second this thing happened, it's like advertisers are going to boycott it. People are going to talk shit about it, as they should, for a long time. It's not going to make them look good. And they were like, you know what? We're not fighting this for you. It's not worth it.
So I actually have something I think ABC might have been even a little more nefarious in this. And this is like me kind of grasping at conspiracies, which I'm normally not want to do, but this is sort of where I spun out to, because to me, lining up sort of the chain of events, Roseanne Barr has long since been anti-Semitic. She's long since been conspiratorial. She's long since been racist. These are not new things. These were things that happened way before Roseanne got picked up. They are things that are continuing to happen now. So is it that they thought, okay, we're going to give Roseanne this show. She needs to keep a muzzle on it at least while we are paying her, and then she can say whatever she wants, which is really fucked up because they are bringing on a known racist. Right. So my conspiracy theory is that they wanted this chip to play. They thought they could. Again, I don't even know if I believe this, but it's just one of those things
they were
that
just waiting
myself
for the
into.
Well,
essentially, they wanted to be able to make their stand of we are anti-racist. We will punish people who say shit. And so they brought on this woman. They said, okay, we're gonna start this show. It's gonna be a cash cow. Mm-hmm. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if they knew it was going to be. It ended up being a cash cow, but we will also have the moral high ground of pulling the plug on it when she inevitably says something horrible. So we can have both sides of the sort of.
I don't know if they went into it thinking that, and the only reason I say that is because, again, they knew what they were signing up for.
Right.
So it's just surprising that, really, it took you this long. What about, it's all those people who are those Republicans who are well, Donald Trump did this thing yesterday, and so now I'm not so sure I support it.
Like,
Do you
why
know
is
what he's done?
this? Why is this
the breaking point for you?
Yeah, I completely agree. My sort of the most nefarious reading of it from me is just saying they wanted to have both sides of the culture war. They wanted to.
They won it. They got them both.
They did. They wanted to bring back Roseanne as this Trump supporting white collar show, as if Roseanne's the only show that's ever been about a white collar family. It's not it's objectively not. They wanted to have that so they look good in the eyes of the Trump voters of America, or the people who feel like they're ignored by the quote-unquote liberal elites. But now they also have this moral high ground of saying oh, she said one thing too many.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's sort of my conspiracy theory about it.
I hear you. That brought up a thing. We've talked to Bart Campolo on this podcast several times. His father, Tony Campolo, is a famous evangelical pastor. Mm-hmm. He said this thing that I think falls into this. For the people who get really upset that Samantha Bee said the word cunt.
Yeah.
Here's what Tony Campolo once said in a famous sermon or in an interview or something. I have 3 things I'd like to say to you today, to a Christian audience. First, while you were sleeping last night, 30,000 kids died of starvation or diseases related to malnutrition. Second, most of you don't give a shit.
Wow.
What's worse is that you're more upset with the fact that I said shit than the fact that 30,000 kids died last night. And so for the people,
very good.
For the people who are more upset about the fact that she said cunt, think about the reason that she said it, because that has a purpose. And the whole argument that makes sense is by saying cunt, you overshadow the message that you were trying to get across, which is important.
Listen, and that's an argument we can have all day of is my, because I get the iTunes comment or the emails we get or whatever, people are, this sort of refrain I hear over and over again is, just you and Hemmett could be great ambassadors for the atheists, but your swearing puts people off, and so you're fucking it up. It's honestly you've read it all. That's not an unusual thing for me to get. Weekly, we get something to that effect. But
if that's what you're paying attention to, you're missing the point.
Exactly. Is there a conversation to say do we need to talk to people in their language so they understand? Maybe it's. But that's not what's happening here right now. People are pretending to be mad at a thing so they can ignore the other thing. Matthew Fleischer for the LA Times also, so he wrote a piece more specifically comparing, essentially his headline was, did Samantha Bee and Roseanne both say shitty things? Yes. Are they the same? No. And it's again, another thoughtful piece. He said, quote, Barr's comments belittle an entire race of people and help spread paranoid fear of a Jewish global order. Dehumanizing entire groups of people as such puts them in danger of violent reprisal and helps justify the stripping of their civil rights. You're just chugging that wine, buddy. Hemmett forgets to drink his wine through the whole show, and then when I get up on rants, he's like, it's my chance. Quote, there's no such inherent threat in Bee's vulgarity. Rather, equating crudeness with Roseanne's outlandish tweets normalizes racism and anti-Semitism. That the White House would issue a full-throated condemnation of Bee, which he super did. And sorry, guys, if we're going to talk about First Amendment rights, the government saying a show should be canceled, that's what the First Amendment is about. It's not about, me swearing
about ABC saying we're going to cancel Roseanne. That's not First Amendment.
So sorry, I distracted myself. That the White House would issue a full-throated condemnation of Bee, while the president offered a dog-whistling defense of Barr, speaks volumes. Which he's Trump. So this weekend we had all the kids who went missing. We found out that the death toll in Puerto Rico is thousands higher than what the government said. And the thing that got a rise out of the president is that Roseanne Barr's show got canceled. And
Samantha Bee said a swear.
And Samantha Bee said, that's the shit he's mad about. And it's just, I can't. What else did I say? Sorry, GOP, it's hard to see you clutch your pearls when we have President Donald J. Trump in the White House. Yeah, I think this is a good moment to sort of take a breath and see what we're really mad about and what's worth being mad about. If you, listener, are sincerely mad about me swearing, fine. If what you're actually mad about is that like a woman is loud, then maybe like fucking look into your
what I'm mad about.
look into your dark soul and figure out what the fuck is going on. If you're really mad that Samantha Bee called Ivanka a cunt, fine. But like,
you should be madder at why she did it.
Exactly? Like, is that where your rage is most helpful right now? So that's all I wanted to say about that. Oh, okay. The sarcastic clapping is
It
not.
wasn't sarcastic. I like it.
Did I tell you? I was playing softball a couple weeks ago, and the team was real assholes, and they gave me the game ball sarcastically, and it was the worst moment of my life.
Nice.
Oh, I'm such a nightmare to be around. Okay, so we have
That's enough
we have
for a
no
week.
listener mail this week because
whatever.
I forgot it was the thing I needed to get until.
That's okay. This is still a
20
longer
minutes.
episode than all the other.
Is it? Hemant, really quick, your happy thing.
I'm home.
Yeah, and you're almost like home.
Almost.
Oh, what a
One
time to
day.
be alive. I've got two things.
Yes.
One is that I'm super psyched. I'm going to be downtown tomorrow night. I'm going to see, John Hodgman?
Yes.
He has a podcast
him.
called Judge John Hodgman. No, I
Yes.
know you don't know him fucking personally.
We
Otherwise,
should
I would
change that.
I bet he'd be our friend.
John, hit us up.
John, it's me, Jessica. You're your close personal friend.
You're seeing him
I'll
live?
probably shake. Yeah, so he has a podcast called Judge John Hodgman with Jesse Thorne, and they literally, it's people who are like, my husband does this thing that annoys me. We're going to take it to court. And John Hodgman is like the faux judge. And it's very self-serious. It's hysterical. So that's tomorrow night. So I'm going downtown with my husband and my brother and his girlfriend. And I'm like super stoked about it. The other thing is I think I can officially announce that I'm having my first like public speaking gig.
Where are you speaking?
So I was invited to speak for the Humanists of Houston. In October, so it's October. Shit, I have October 10th. That doesn't feel right though. Come on, Jessica.
Way to bring everyone.
God
to
damn
the
it,
group.
Jessica. Figure your life out.
So you're
20th.
Okay.
October 20th. So I will be speaking at their monthly meeting.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
I'm nervous and excited and very flattered. This is the first
That's
time anyone's
awesome.
asked me to like be anywhere. And I don't think anyone knows what I look like, so I'm not like super psyched about that either. Like I'm just so yeah, if you live in Houston or the surrounding areas and you're free on October 20th. P.S. I'm going to be in Houston twice in the month of October. What is my life?
That's awesome.
So anyway,
It's a good city.
I'm excited. I'm going to eat a lot of
And
food.
a good
probably.
group, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things. I don't know, and like Hemant's the one who knows everyone. Like when their president reached out to me, and I was like, "Did she mean to reach out to Hemant? Did she make a mistake again?"
No, that's awesome. If
Yeah.
you're in Houston, go see Jess October 20th.
I'm super stoked about it. Yeah, so that's happening. That's very exciting. Like I just started sweating thinking about it. I'm very nervous. So yes, Hemant, where can I find you on Twitter?
Hemant Meta. I'm around.
Just throw my pen on the ground.
It fell.
My best pen.
I made like 4 wrong turns on the way to get here. That's how disoriented I am
buddy,
today.
do you need me to drive you home? You've come here once a week for like 6 months.
I know. I was driving for the first time in like a month today, it felt like.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter at Blueberry, BLUEBURIE. You can follow me there. Hey, every time somebody says something really shitty about me in the iTunes comment, I take a screen grab and I tweet it. So if you want to see what people say that's mean about me, that is the place for you
Follow
to
her on
find
Twitter.
it. Yeah, you can super find that.
Go to Patreon.
Patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast. Our next donation thing is what's our next
Transcripts, I believe.
transcripts, which
We're
is
going to
really
try to
cool.
get you transcripts, which is weird.
Oh my god!
Because
I don't know
no
if I
one
need that
should
in my
remember
life.
exact quotations. But for some of you who like reading instead of
Or
listening
for,
or whatever,
the deaf and hard of hearing community
Yep.
can be more a part of it. All that good
we'll
stuff.
try working on
I
that at
don't
the
know
next
how
goal.
well our garbage will translate.
I
to
know.
text. And then beyond that is a live show, and
Yeah.
that's kind of exciting too. I think that's all we
Well, good.
have.
We'll talk to you next
yeah, you know
week,
what?
right?
If you want to get listener mail in, so if you need advice or have any thoughts that you want us to talk about, friendlyatheistpodcast@gmail.com. My next episode of Fables is going to be released soon. It was definitely supposed to be released a while ago.
I'm home now.
We're doing
It's
our
all
best. So that's going to
So will Star Wars,
be me
by
and
the
my
way.
husband.
Do you know how many people are
People are, like,
tweeting me who
mad
are like,
about it.
yeah,
You
this
know who
needs
else
to
is
happen
mad about
soon.
it? My husband. Every Friday, he's like, "So we're gonna watch it tonight?" And I'm like, "No, he's a liar and a cheat, and he cheated you out of your money."
No,
That's what's
I'll
happening.
work it out. No, it's
I
gonna
saw
happen.
the new Star Wars movie over the weekend.
There's a new one?
Yeah.
How many of these do I have to catch up on?
No, you don't have to. We're just gonna watch the first one.
Oh, good.
Although, if I had my druthers, we would watch Force Awakens because it's much better.
This totally went over my head.
Don't worry about it. It was okay. It was.
As long as I don't have to do the Marvel Universe thing. Because there's a bunch of those.
I would argue those are reasonably entertaining at least.
You know how many times I use my movie pass? It's expired.
Why do you
now.
have a movie pass?
I don't know.
My husband got a movie pass. He
It was
uses it
3
literally. He uses it so frequently that they're like, "Can you send us pictures of your tickets? Because we think you're scamming us."
I literally used it 0 times. Stupid children.
Okay, so you got the movie pass, you didn't use it. You got the pasta pass, you used it once
I know,
with
it was
me.
so sad.
What are your goals, Emmett?
I don't know.
For
I'm
somebody
so
who
bad
doesn't
at
ever
trying
want to
get-
leave the house, you buy a lot of things that would make you leave the house.
I figure it would be motivation, and I'm wrong every time.
And you have just, podcasters make so much money. They just have that disposable income. They don't have to.
It's like a Christmas gift that just goes wrong every time.
Okay, we will talk to you guys next
Bye.
week. Bye.